Astrology of 2024. I'm going to begin by introducing myself by my big three and my dominant element and modality, and I'll invite all of you to do the same, just to share what element and modality you bring to the table. So I am a Sagittarius rising, Aries moon, Cancer sun. I'm cardinal dominant and fire dominant. So I absolutely love hosting and initiating these kind of conversations with other astrologers. And Matt, how about you go next and
Yeah,
share?
okay. So I'm Leo Sun, Taurus rising, and Scorpio moon. So as you can see, I have lots of fixed.
Oh,
Oh
and he's
Oh, we
gone.
lost that.
no! Oh, I think it's interesting that the Taurus rising was the last to join. You know, I'm not talking about any stereotypes here, but I always say don't rush this Taurus rising. Matt, we may have lost you, so I'm going to add you again. Hannah, would you like to go ahead? Maybe. Oh
No,
wait, it's
yeah,
back. You're
I'm
back.
Yay!
You're
dealing
back.
with this stuff. I'm back. Okay, so it kicked me out. Okay, so I'm Taurus rising, Leo Sun, and Scorpio moon. I will have all the fixed modality. And for the elements, I think I'm in between water and earth. So they are equally in my chart. So I can go with either one of them.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
Isis, what about you?
Well, I'm a Scorpio rising, Sagittarius sun and moon. But the interesting thing is because I was born in the end of 1990, so I have plenty of Capricorn placements. So my dominant element is earth and dominant modality is cardinal, despite, the big three being none of that. So I think it's a pretty interesting mixture.
Yeah, it's a great point that you make about how it's so important to look at our elements and modalities because they don't always correlate with our big three. Yeah, amazing. Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, so my rising is Virgo, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Aries, and then I have a Capricorn stellium and an Aquarius stellium. So then they influence my most dominant element. So I would be quite like part mostly air, mostly earth, and then my modality is fixed, like a lot of fixed energy. So many ideas, and then I also like to execute those ideas and try my best to follow them through to completion.
That's great. I love that. So the only element, the only modality we're missing really is the mutable. But I'm sure we're discussing a lot of mutable energy for next year anyway, so that will make up
Yeah.
for it. So I'm going to dive straight into Pluto moving into Aquarius in January. And I'm looking back at when Pluto entered Aquarius in 2023. You know, I like to think of it as a movie. We were treated to an advanced preview, maybe we could say this year, of the movie that is coming in 2024 or 2025 to a theater near you. And it's like we're getting to see the trailer. And then in 2024, Pluto is moving into Aquarius for a little while. It's like the film star is doing the promo for the movie before like the movie actually launches properly in November. So there's like this build up, this momentum is building all the time. But another astrologer pointed out to me recently, you know, that Saturn rules Capricorn, it rules Aquarius. So is the transition from maybe Pluto and Capricorn to Aquarius, is it going to be maybe smoother than we think, or is it going to be quite drastic? Matt, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on maybe Pluto's ingress in January of next year into Aquarius?
Yeah, so yeah, as you said, actually we saw the preview of things last year. So and also yeah, Saturn both rules Aquarius and Capricorn. So in Capricorn, like it is like more structure oriented, traditions, structures, and working career. We know these things, and in
Mm-hmm.
Aquarius, it will be, I think, still have this structure, but more in a kind of revolutionary sense, like making things new, like for also uh, making society to access equality. So that will be one of its major themes with Pluto and Aquarius. And also Aquarius rules technology, we know. So we can also expect lots of technological advancements and um, in a way. So maybe many of the technologies that we cannot access now, we know like they are developing technologies. So we will have the like uh, privilege to access them. So technology will be more accessible, at least, so for humanity, for everybody, more and more. So that can be one of its representations. And also, if we also take a look at history regarding what happened during the time of Pluto in Aquarius, so we see lots of revolutions, lots of independence movements, and lots of equality movements, and lots of LGBTQ movements. So there will be something also that will affect society and regarding, I think, equality, first of all. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Aquarius rules those themes of equality, so it's going to be very prominent next year. And as you say, revolutionary themes. Definitely, when Pluto comes into the mix, we're going to see some transformations. Hannah, would you like to jump on that? What are your thoughts on this shift we're going to experience in January when Pluto ingresses?
Yeah, I really like how you put that, Matt. A lot of really insightful information. Um, so I'm kind of thinking about it along the lines of what you mentioned there, Katrina, with when Pluto first entered Aquarius last year. And so with that, we noticed how it was in quite a challenging position. Um, so the thing is Jupiter was a part of this, and well, to even just say with this year coming up in 2024, Jupiter will also square Pluto and the Sun. So the Sun and Pluto will both enter Aquarius at the very, very beginning of the season. So we've been noticing basically over 2023 just a lot of, security issues, challenges, things like this. And then there was that Pluto retrograde energy making a square to Jupiter, and then there was a Taurus stellium. Mercury was retrograde back then in Taurus, so we were revisiting our security, our stability, our self-worth, our comforts, our pleasure, all these Taurus themes. And so I think this upcoming transition of Pluto, it's a continuation of last year's story, if you will. But this time, because Sun and Pluto will enter Aquarius and they will make a trine with Moon in Gemini. So there's going to be more of like this mental energy, more logical, more rational, whilst also considering, of course, our material and physical lessons that came up throughout 2023. And then the question of will it be smooth? I think it really depends on what came up for us regarding these matters, because it could play out in many different ways. But what I find interesting about it, just to kind of go along with this is also about then innovation, experimenting, thinking outside of the box, ushering in change at the same time with regard to these things, our security, materials, etc. Especially because the Sun will conjunct Pluto, Mercury will conjunct Pluto, Mars, then Venus, all these these personal planets in Aquarius will make the same 0 degree as Pluto. So to me, it's kind of like this real new beginning energy. It's like a critical transitional period, and the Aquarius stellium building up there, it's really going to point toward like community, teamwork, power, finding the strength in numbers, like we're doing right now. I think that's a big part of it. And I also think that what we're going to really see is seeing how everything is interconnected and that nothing exists in isolation, and that also even on a more cosmic level, like we are part of the cosmos, and that's what astrology essentially, we study the cycles and everything, and of the planets and the movements of everything. So I think that shows how interconnected we are.
Yeah, I love that idea of the interrelatedness of all of us, that Aquarius energy, you know, and you're the best to talk about it. You're Aquarius sun, am I right in saying that?
Yeah,
Yes.
and Mercury and Saturn as well.
Yeah, so it would be a deeply personal like evolution for you at some point in the next 20 years, Hannah, as well. But I love that. Isis, what do you feel? The dawn of a new era next year?
Well, it's kind of twofold. I would like to start from where you asked about, is it going to be smooth or not? I do believe that if we, look from this greater perspective, when Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, it was like uh, like a radical new review of our structures, right? Of our politics. And since Capricorn is cardinal energy, lots of these shifts were really unexpected and really, new, really fresh. And with Aquarius being a fixed sign, on one hand, Aquarius, yes, it's all about this radical innovation, this ingenuousness, this unique, revolutionizing insights that can be, used to improve our structures. But on the other hand, it's a fixed energy sign. So probably all these innovations that happen throughout these 20 years or so, they're probably gonna stay with us. I do believe so. They probably have staying power because it's also a Saturn rule sign. So these structures we have are probably gonna go through massive transformations. And as Hannah pointed out, it's the time when Pluto enters Aquarius. It also conjuncts Sun, so there may be, some probably, from the negative perspective, we might see some, dramatic shifts, like some cold, brutal truths coming out of the surface. Some dark secrets regarding the same technology, artificial intelligence, and general greater collective that might shake us to the core. We may see some shocking things that might transform us in a sense. But in the positive sense, I do believe that we're gonna see the rebirth of the collective ego or the way we look into society, and have some chances and opportunities for implementing these changes for the best of all. So that's basically my take on this kind of short second time of Pluto's in Aquarius.
Yeah, and I like what you said there about the structures staying with us, because we can see, for example, remote working that came in during Pluto and Capricorn's time. And now we can see that that's here to stay. We can all probably agree. And these are like valuable structures that, have a place. I know not everybody likes working remotely, but they can definitely suit some people and work for them. So yeah, that's lovely. I love how positive you all are with your takes on Pluto's ingress into Aquarius. Even though it is a Saturn ruled year, Mars is going to be very significant next year, very active. Mars conjuncts Pluto in Aquarius in February, and then which really Mars conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, I always feel, there's something pivotal there being triggered. And really, off the top of my head, I think cyber attacks, something online, maybe some kind of revolutionary movement or groups being mobilized, perhaps. And then 6 days later, we have Chiron conjunct the North Node in Aries. And Chiron gets such a bad rap, but there's definitely potential for healing there, or redemption. So this February is going to be pretty significant as well. Matt, have you looked at this energy for February? What are your thoughts on what this could lead to?
Yeah, yeah. So it will be an interesting one in February, because as you say, like Chiron can sometimes be viewed as more negative, but when we have North Node, so North Node is an important point in astrology because it takes us to where we are supposed to go, like what we need to face. And with Chiron in Aries and North Node in Aries, so if you also think that Aries and also the first house represents the self, identity, and physical body, and so on. So I think this energy will also be quite personal in personal lives and regarding what we need to, how we need to face ourselves, what we need to see in ourselves, and or how like we can see our wounds or what makes us feel triggered and what triggers our traumas in the past. So there will be lots of healing actually with Chiron with North Node. So positively, like, or let's say it can be seen as something negative at first, but when this conjunction happens, like afterwards, I believe many people will be happy that like life took them to that path. So many people will feel happy that these things happened, because it will be a really um, important transit, because it will also be about discovering our potential, our healing potential, or how we can heal ourselves and others. So then, and Aries is also a quite self-confidence sign. So for that, it can even kind of boost a little bit of self-confidence. So it can yeah, make someone sure that, yeah, I have these problems, I have these wounds, and I have to kind of look into them and make peace with them, actually. And finally, yeah, it can be about these things.
Yeah, I totally agree. Isis, how do you foresee that transit playing out? Chiron conjunct the North Node, and even Mars conjunct Pluto, a few days beforehand.
Yes, I do believe these two transits are very intertwined this time
Mm.
because, well, my perspective is quite similar. It's with Mars and Pluto conjunction, we have this a unique opportunity to release our anger in a way that, you know, with Chiron North Node conjunction, we see the possibility of healing in the end, of this healing at the soul level. So we may, like end up healing some intergenerational traumas or something like that. And for example, like
Mm.
of course there can be many manifestations. So of course we need to be kind of conscious, self-conscious, and aware of our actions so that we don't end up in some situations where we are explosive and angry at those around us, and we don't blow up our relational structures, for instance. But there are of course some positive manifestations of this Mars Pluto conjunction, so that we can channel that energy into taking actions that require incredible mental and physical power and strength. Like I came up with a couple of examples, like running a marathon, for example, or maybe engaging in strenuous mental work, like academic research, for example. It might be perfect time for that. And of course, with that Chiron North Node conjunction, we may feel plenty of pain around that time, especially if this conjunction makes some contact with our personal planets and significant points in our own charts. So this might be the possibility, but I do believe that if we are open to whatever feelings we feel and whatever pain we encounter, and we accept that, we may end up with clarity in the end regarding the path that signifies our greatest potential and our swiftest growth. That basically is what the North Node is about. So yeah, it's gonna be tough. I think it's gonna be tough for many of us, but if we are aware of this, it can be easier to endure that challenging time, and to see, it's probably gonna be one of those times of the year when a week or 2 or 3 weeks passes, and then we can look back and see, oh, it was challenging, but eventually I learned a lot during that time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that point about, there's great potential there for healing in that week if we're open to it and if we bring awareness to it. And, I'm just thinking myself, whenever Mars conjuncts Pluto, especially in Aquarius, I would say people need to use discernment around protesting that week, just because there's the potential for aggression and things to get out of hand, especially public protests. But Chiron conjunct the North Node definitely shows me that, even if something goes down that week, there's great potential for healing in the collective on an individual level. Hannah, would you like to add anything to that about that week in February that's going to be pretty significant?
Yeah. What I'm sort of hearing from this is owning our anger, owning our frustrations, rather than getting carried away or
Mm.
going into like a blind rage and, even projecting it outwardly. But I also find what I find interesting about that week as well is, so with Mars conjunct Pluto and then the North Node conjunct Chiron, the moon will also be in Aries for a period of it, for its, usual couple of days. And it will conjunct the Chiron and North Node as well. So to me, what came to my mind was many people will be sort of cracked open by social revelations or by powerful psychological change. And Mars, of course, is the dispositor of all of that Aries energy, those Aries planets. So Mars being there with Pluto, I think, really does point toward these powerful, like, psychological shifts. And then also shifts in our goals and our focus and our mindset, especially because Mercury will also be in Aquarius and it will sextile Chiron in the North Node. So it's just like, perspectives suddenly changing, maybe because of a wound or because of some pain that we just can't turn away from. I like that. What the I think it was you, Matt, said about facing ourselves, and I feel that that is just so true. Um, not turning away from the pain, not turning away from what's going on within. We tend to be like that as social beings. We don't really like anything uncomfortable, but this is actually saying no. But if you face yourself and you go into it, that can be really empowering for you and for the collective too. And it starts with us, because that's the thing that came to my mind. It's like with Pluto and Aquarius too, it's like if you want to see the change within society, you need to be the change, you know. So that's, yeah, that would be it's sort of general feel for what I think will come up during that week for many people.
Yeah, it really shows that the cosmos are working for us, I always feel, rather than against us. They're mobilizing us to find this healing, maybe that we potentially need to do this healing work. In February and March, then we have Pisces season, but Pisces season is obviously going to be a bit heavier this year with Saturn in Pisces. But I guess it will be a really introspective time, I feel, to get more in tune with the messages of Saturn in Pisces. I always feel when Saturn transits any sign, he's teaching us something fundamental about the energy of that sign. Matt, the themes of Saturn and Pisces, we know that Pisces season is going to be heavy. It's going to conjunct the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So, yeah, like, what are your thoughts on Saturn and Pisces, maybe so far,
Yeah,
in general?
yeah, in general. So we actually didn't really see Saturn in Pisces because of the retrograde, and it is still in the early degrees. But with the start of the Pisces season, we will have the initiation. It is similar to what Hannah said about Pluto. When Pluto will be in Aquarius, all the planets will be over Pluto, and in Pisces season as well, planets will be over Pisces. So, and you also say that Saturn teaches us. So this time, I think if we also combine Pisces energy, so the teachings will be on emotions and spirituality, and how to structure these things and how to feel grounded in these things. So it can also be related to controlling emotions, not feeling suffocated in your emotions, like in personal level. And at the same time, Saturn is about structure, we know, and Pisces is also related to spirituality and all these things. So we can also expect a type of regulation in spiritual world. So maybe we um, by regulation, I mean if someone is really grounded and knows their job. So I'm talking more about scamming side of spiritual world. So I think
Yeah.
that will be there will be some improvements there in spiritual world. And I also find Pisces season quite interesting. So it is the last season in zodiac. So it is kind of the phase before starting over. So in Aries. So I think that season will also teach us what to structure and which emotions should we hold on or should we control, and how to make a proper new beginning in Aries season. So that will, I think, mostly be about self-control, emotional control, and emotional groundedness in a way. Yeah.
I love what you said about Pisces. See, you know, Saturn and Pisces, we haven't been able to see it. I always associate Pisces energy with being invisible. It's the one
Yeah.
sign that's not tangible. You can't grasp it. It's so elusive. And even I've been thinking back, as you say, you know, Saturn and Pisces, the transit so far. Yes, we've had the retrograde, but can I get a handle on what Saturn and Pisces is showing us? It's still quite murky. It's still so elusive to us. But hopefully, February, March, some more light, the light of the sun will illuminate us all on this Saturn and Pisces transit. Istis, have you any thoughts on this transit?
Yeah, well, at first when I was, looking that, all these planets are gonna pass Saturn, I thought, oh no, it's gonna be like really gloomy times. And but then later on, I realized that there is quite a time frame between these transits, because Mercury and Sun, they conjunct Saturn around the end of February, 28th or 29th. Then there's Venus on May 21st, and then Mars finishes it around April 10th or 11th. So there is still like plenty of time. It's not like we get this huge one long Saturn transit, but these are kind of, scattered in time, which probably is going to make it a lot easier. Of course, I really believe that we can certainly expect some of the themes of Saturn in Pisces, which has been so mysterious so far, to be illuminated, especially around this Mercury Sun Saturn conjunction around the end of February. Because, well, Saturn and Sun, these conjunctions often act as some kind of illuminations. And with Saturn, yes, we might feel like it might be, heavier, it might be harder to concentrate, on our thinking, on our communication. It might be heavier in terms of, both emotionally and in terms of performance, which might really impact our creative self-expression and the way we think. But yeah, I do believe that we actually should start realizing what this entire Saturn time in Pisces bringing us. What are these lessons? Because for now we can only have these kind of very abstract, very abstract significations. Well, probably except a few examples when we had like this story of this underwater ship that got, that drowned with people around the time
Yeah.
of Saturn retrograde. I think it was very enlightening in the sense that, probably lots of us thought it might have to do something with water, Saturn's ingress into Pisces, but it was so literal, it was even incredible. So, but I do believe that, yeah, probably we're gonna, comes February, March, and April, we are gonna have more clarity in terms of what this Saturn in Pisces is going to be about in general. Because if we go back to Saturn in Aquarius, it was very clear from the very beginning, right? When Saturn just entered Aquarius and we had this outbreak of coronavirus, and all of a sudden we had to isolate ourselves, and this this was very literal manifestation of Saturn in Aquarius, imposing certain limitations in terms of our community, in terms of being together, very literally. So yes, I'm looking forward to February and March in the sense of maybe we can finally, get some idea what's it all about.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully by February, March, this Pisces energy won't be as elusive when the Sun conjuncts Saturn. I totally agree. Hannah, have you found the Saturn and Pisces transit as elusive and mysterious as the rest of us?
Mm, um, I feel, just for you saying about like in a more personal way, in that way,
Mm.
I have found it's in my seventh house. I'm translating my seventh house. And I felt like it's been teaching me a lot about my own emotional maturity and owning my emotions and taking responsibility for my emotions. But to talk about it, about the months ahead, I'm looking forward to these personal planets then joining Saturn to really get a deeper look, a closer look, more personal look. But it is an interesting contrast to the Pluto conjunctions so the Pluto conjunctions in Aquarius there. So we're essentially going from this like mental view, perhaps a more detached or objective view, still for a deeper purpose of like diving deep and trying to understand our humanity on a more fundamental level. But then as we approach Pisces season, we go to this vastly emotional and spiritual level regarding that which limits us, it's a time for feeling. It's again, it goes back to emotional maturity and responsibility. What do we bring to the party? How do we own our projections as well? And what are we disillusioned by? I think Saturn and Pisces has actually been a great way for us to be really real, to be real and straight with ourselves about these types of things. And what blocks us from connecting emotionally or from dropping into our feelings, rather than being so logical in the mind, it's like drop into the feeling. And this is also about our relationship with spirituality, with our spiritual practices. And I think, especially with Saturn, so around that time, Saturn will make a sextile to Jupiter too in Taurus. So this is going to be great, like grounding energy around that time, tapping into our senses, our body. And but this is also about practicality, because for example, you know, there could be spiritual mentors who would say it's like live in the present, etc. But maybe the Jupiter and Taurus energy, sextile Saturn, is supportive, and then it's going to also showcase some practical applications, how to do that, rather than it just being a phrase. And then what I also find interesting about this period is that we're quickly approaching eclipse season. So we'll have the lunar eclipse in Libra, and then we'll have the solar eclipse in Aries. And so Venus ruling Libra, Mars ruling Aries, and they will be in Pisces. So we're noticing this continuation basically, and just the importance of going within. And I feel as if, yeah, all this Pisces energy, especially, it's going to be very much like, look at this. What are you avoiding? What are you escaping? Pisces can be the escapist in this way. Maybe because certain emotions are too much to deal with. But I think what's important to keep in mind with this is just trying not to bury our heads in the sand, and just Saturn and Pisces, it says, take responsibility, hold yourself accountable, and this is serious maturity with respect to our emotions and our spirituality.
Yeah, and I love what you touched on there about disillusionment, because if that's one word I think we could attribute to Saturn and Pisces, it's this sense of disillusionment and disinformation, all of the disses basically. These have been themes that have come up for us, and Matt is touching it as well with, even we see so many spiritual gurus now, but, are they all, being authentic? Are they all operating from this highest place? These are the questions Saturn is asking us and asking of them. So I think, as you say, Jupiter in Taurus will be helpful for this transit for sure. In April, then we have one of the, I suppose, most hotly anticipated, debated topics, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. I had a quick look on YouTube, and there are so many videos already made on this one transit. There are so many theories out there. Isis, I'm going to start with you this time. Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, what do you expect for this transit?
Well, yes, it's no coincidence probably that there are so many different interpretations of this and so many different videos and versions of this transit. because with Uranus, you can never actually expect what's gonna happen in a sense, because Uranus is so unexpected, and it's it's part of the one of these essential qualities of the planet, so that it's got this trickster energy, so that it's kind of hard to categorize and hard to know where the lightning is gonna strike next time. So I do believe that because of that, it can actually go both ways. It's like there can be lots of restless drive towards innovation, like without real progress on one hand, but we could also see some real ingenious technological progress being made. And when you have Jupiter, which has to do with faith and courage, and Uranus, which we often associate with inventiveness and being and technology and in a sense of being eccentric. But I think, when you look into it, when you look that both of these planets are going to be direct at the time of conjunction, so we should probably really see some outward manifestations of this conjunction, some very tangible ones, especially since it happens in Taurus, which has to do, with our basic resources like food, water, money. So it's kind of hard to guess, but I could see maybe a development of a new important technology regarding our earthly resources, or yeah, like just as I said, food, water, something that might change the way we look at these basic things.
Yeah, and as you say, we can't predict for Uranus. Uranus laughs at us, I think, when we try to have predictions around these transits. But yeah, it's definitely going to affect something Taurus rules. Matt, do you have any theories on this celestial event, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction?
Yeah, so Isis was quite correct on agriculture, land. Taurus is also about our
Mm,
resources. And on the news as well, I see many stories of countries like which encourage their citizens to go to villages and like do farming, and like there might be this new type of farming technologies or
mm.
agriculture technologies. So it can be like a go back to nature movement. So it can be something about that, first of all. So this will also bring a type of social change in social structures. And at the same time, so I checked when this conjunction happened in previous decades or previous times. So each of them were a bit different from each other. So like we have Uranus. So as this said, like we can't really predict what will happen. So but um, they were about different topics, but they all brought a massive social change afterwards. So this effects of this conjunction, I think, will be relevant in summer or so. So after some time, so that will sure start a big movement, and it will be quite fixed. So Taurus is also a fixed sign, like Aquarius. So if you also think that Pluto is an Aquarius in fixed sign, so these changes will be like quite long term in society. And uh, as a side note, Uranus will also conjunct Algol, fixed star Algol in July. So yeah, that's why I also think that we will have the peak in July of this conjunction. Yeah.
Yeah, and Matt, would you like to shed a little bit of light on the fixed star Algol for our viewers?
Yeah, okay. So it is the most notorious fixed star. So it is also connected to the myth of Medusa, and it represents throats in the body, algol. So yeah, when someone first start researching about algol, like they can be a bit afraid, kind of, because like it doesn't have really like uplifting representations. But algol as well can be about, uh, uh, in a way, it can be about justice or protection. So For example, if you travel in Europe, Greece, Mediterranean, so if you look at the old buildings, you will have the head of Medusa in old buildings because they thought that when earthquake happens, Medusa will protect them. So yeah, it has really a deep meaning. So it can be like another topic for life. But this also, Uranus algol like always brought a massive social change. So which can also affect women positively because in myth, Medusa is a woman, and if you read the myth, she was done wrong, and in mythology. So after this, it can be more justice-related movements. So this conjunction, when last time it happened, so it was about women's suffrage, right to vote. So it was about that. So we can also expect in July or August. So there might be a new women's rights movement or legal justice movements. So it can also be about that.
Okay. Hannah, what are your thoughts on the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction?
Whew, uh, there's quite a bit that has been on my mind with this conjunction. So I go first to when Jupiter first entered Taurus last year and how I was in such a challenging spot. So uh, square Pluto retrograde, and then Mars was also in Leo, so this, challenging T-square. Um, and then Venus being the dispositor of Jupiter, we had the Venus retrograde in Leo. Uh, so that was throughout the summer. And so during that time period, we were really called to reconnect with our true intentions, our passions, our creativity, the love we have for something or someone or for ourselves.
Mm,
Just even from my personal experience, I reconnected a lot with my inner child back then and watched a lot of Disney movies because they remind me of my childhood. But I think there was a lot to do with what brings us joy and getting back to that and looking at our heart, looking at love, courage, etc. So Venus then turned direct toward the end of the summer. Then Juno was there, so there was this like revival for many of us with respect to our relationships, our creativity, our art, and our passions. So Venus then moving from Leo all the way to Aries. So Venus will be in Aries whenever this conjunction happens. I think this whole time period from summer up until this conjunction in April, it's like there's a lot that has been addressed, processed, and also accepted with respect to our self-worth and relationships, so on and so forth.
mhm,
But then with the conjunction, so Venus will be in Aries, as I say, but it'll also conjunct Chiron too. So this is also another time period, I think, where we will be facing what's going on with us in relation to relating, connecting, joining in, any fears of abandonment, any fears of rejection, and maybe these things are tied in with these bigger picture themes with Uranus and Jupiter. So looking at these revelations, to do with our self-worth, to do with our values, to do with our resources. But um, I think in this way, so much of our personality is going to be cracked open, and this is about bravery. So I think this stuff will come up on a very like personal, deeper level, but then it's also about recognizing that yes, inflation is very much here, prices are increasing, the cost of living is mad, it's crazy. So I think what we're sort of coming up to here is like, what is it that we're gonna I think we'll address a lot to do with our resources and to do with our earnings. And then breaking free as well, I think, from any sort of false narratives, such as, I'm not good enough. Like, and in this way, maybe being inspired in a whole new way by art, creativity, by desire, by pleasure, by a group event, Uranus tied to groups and, community and this type of stuff. This could be a very uplifting energy. And this could also be the type of energy that says, like, you're supported by others, you're supported by your team, by your group, value yourself in this way. And then I also think this will push us outside of our comfort zone. And yes, I do agree in that. Always expect the unexpected with Uranus because it could bring up many different things for us.
mhm.
But yeah, we'll be surprised. I think essentially we're going to be surprised by how things play out. Um, but it's also about this message of, do we have what it takes to step into something that is very new and surprising?
Yeah, definitely. There will be some challenge for sure, even though we're hoping it will be pleasant with Jupiter there, but surprising. I totally agree, Hannah. And some of our people joining us have mentioned digital ID, digital currency. Yes, it could potentially affect the banking system. And while Jupiter has been in Taurus, the price of food has substantially increased. So Jupiter moving into Erie Gemini, even though Jupiter doesn't love to be in Gemini, it might be a welcome relief. The price of food might come down, we hope. Everything has gone up in price while Jupiter was in Taurus. So all of the mutable signs have been getting quite a battering, we could say, from Saturn. So Jupiter in Gemini is some welcome relief. Isis, are you looking forward to Jupiter moving into Gemini in May?
Yes, in a sense, I am looking forward to because I mean, yes, since it's kind of personal because Taurus is my, not like personal, but yeah, in a sense that I have Sun and Moon in Sagittarius, so the Saturn's been, you know, forming a T-square with my Moon and Mars, so it's been pretty intense last spring. But speaking on a more general level, Jupiter in Gemini should bring us this endless curiosity in thinking, should open us up to multiple perspectives and possibly a myriad of brilliant ideas, right? Our minds should be literally bursting from these creative ideas. But the thing is that Jupiter in Gemini is not at its strongest, and we might have hard time deciding on which of these hundreds and hundreds of great ideas should we pursue and implement. So I do believe that this might be, the most serious challenge in terms of Jupiter and Gemini. But as long as we manage to stay mentally flexible, as long as we manage to stay open to ideas, as Gemini is a mutable sign, we should probably, for the next year or so, starting from May, we should probably always have a plan B and even a plan C in our mind, with so many ideas coming at us, so that we don't end up disappointed if our plan changes while implementing it. And generally, I do believe it's going to be a perfect time for artistic and imaginative thinking, especially for those who create all kinds of art that relies a lot on mental output, such as writing or conceptual art. Those people are likely to benefit a lot from these lucky opportunities. And I do believe this also applies to spiritual growth and developing spirituality, because Jupiter makes a sextile with Neptune at the time around its ingress. Also, there's a trine with Pluto, so we may also transform ourselves and experience huge psychological growth, of course, as long as we put some effort into that, because as we know, the trines are supportive as long as we do our part of the work. So yeah, that's my kind of broad overview.
I love your idea of the plan E, the plan B, the plan C. Mercury retrograde is affecting my phone. It says it's going to go dead even though it was fully charged, so I'm plugging it in. Matt, what are your thoughts on
Yeah.
Jupiter in Gemini?
Okay, so I'm so excited about that as well. So I told you that I'm a Taurus rising, and recently I watched an astrologer talking about this transit, and she said, like, if you are a Taurus rising, if you think that Jupiter in Taurus did not benefit you as you expected, Jupiter will be in your second house. So Taurus people care most about the second house. So
That's
definitely,
very
like,
true.
yeah, I said it's right. Yeah, yeah, like it will be good to me. And at the same time, as Isis pointed out, it will be about multiplicity, duality. So Jupiter like does not do well in Gemini, but at least it's still Jupiter. So that will be about new intellectual ideas, intellectual growth, curiosity, And like many people might be into something suddenly and start learning about it. So maybe like some people are not into astrology now, but next year they will learn it. So yeah, there will be new intellectual interests overall. And then at the same time, Jupiter in Gemini might be a bit diffused in a way. So there might be the a tendency to over multitask and like as Gemini is dual and Jupiter enlarges. So like there will be lots of focuses. So as he also pointed out, like it will be important to like focus our focus basically.
Mm.
And negatively, Jupiter will also be in retrograde and sometimes we'll have some difficult aspects. So this difficult periods of Jupiter transit might be about false informations, I believe, and gossips and rumors and things that like we cannot really understand or we cannot see if it is lie or truth. So that might be a kind of challenging time globally and in
Mhm.
personal lives as well. For example, if Jupiter is also conjuncting your personal planets or so.
Mhm.
Um, but overall, like this will teach us to also differentiate like false information from the correct information. So that will teach us lots of intellectual skills and how to uh, like believe in something, how to believe what we see on the internet. And at the same time, like we can, like for example, if we think of the older generation who are in 60s or 70s, so they can get scammed online easily. Like if especially teenagers target them so they know how to do it. But even for this generation, I believe, so there will be lots of technological literacy. So lots of skill to understand what is true or not, what is lie, what is gossip. So yeah, that will be pretty enlightening for us in this sense.
Yeah, and it feeds again into the topics of disinformation,
Yeah.
that we have covered already with Saturn and Pisces. Hannah, are you looking forward to Jupiter and Gemini?
Yeah, I am on a personal level because I'm going to transit my 10th house, so could
Wow.
be some new opportunities there when it comes to purpose and my life path. But yeah, I really liked what you both shared about Jupiter and Gemini. So many things there came up for me, and I was just like, yes, so so true. So what I find interesting about this transit is at the beginning with that trine to Pluto. So what I think about is how Saturn was in Aquarius, and of course, I've just, you mentioned there with uh, Saturn being in Aquarius and with the lockdowns and everything, and how it was just so literal. So Pluto now coming along and following that same path and then creating a trine to Jupiter and Gemini, I think it's more of this, okay, let's get outdoors, let's explore, let's meet people, let's network, let's get together within communities and groups. And there will be a Gemini stellium on Jupiter's first arrival too. So this really does look at like new ideas to get excited about, and especially about the future of technology. I think we can all kind of sense that change is upon us, especially with Pluto entering Aquarius, especially in terms of technology in this way. So I think Jupiter in Gemini, making that trine, it could be a bit of an inspirational energy of okay, you know, uh, what's the next thing that I want to innovate here with respect to the technology or ideas. Mercury will actually, so the dispositor of that Gemini energy, Mercury will conjunct Uranus too, which I find interesting at the beginning of this transit. So this is like, okay, coming up with something innovative and pretty out there, possibly like a product that is groundbreaking, or jumping on a product that comes out and it's like, right, okay, grab the iron while it's hot type of thing. But yeah, getting ourselves excited, getting others excited, light bulb, aha moments as well with Uranus, about creativity, about our artwork too. And greater interaction, I think that could come up, and realizations as well about possibly moving. I'm noticing this within my own sort of observations is that, many people are wanting to move, wanting to relocate because the conditions of where they are, it's not good for them. It's not helping them survive in this way. It doesn't meet their survival needs in this way. But then again, some could be more, so they could move more locally. Of course, Gemini energy can also look more at your local area in this regard, possibly out into the countryside, maybe closer to nature with Uranus and Mercury both being in Taurus, and how it's connected to nature. So getting out of the hustle and the bustle and out of the cities, alternative ways as well of earning and saving money. There's going to be maybe a greater push for certain services and technological changes. But the kind of last point I want to make with this is I feel like this is even pointing toward 2024 is like a serious decision making year, because we're going to notice this, just how I view it, the polarization. I think Pluto in Aquarius is going to show us how polarized we are, how separated we are. We think about this left versus right dynamic, and I feel as if then this same sort of back and forth is going to be seen when it comes to technology, for example, because there's a lot of fears of AI and everything. So, there's people who are all for it and it's exciting and it's new, but then there's other people where it's like, what's the intention behind that? What's the future of that? I'm not sure. So yeah, we're going to notice these serious shifts and uh, decision making, especially because Uranus will enter Gemini in 2025, and that's really going to point toward um, these changes, these very surprising changes with respect to the likes of technology. So yeah, a period of Jupiter and Gemini, I think, is a period of thought and contemplation. What do we want for our future when it comes to technology?
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting point you make about technology and how we communicate online. And Jupiter is going to probably, amplify that and show us all the different options, the A, B, C, or D options we have, and as well the the great divide between, the far left, the far right, when in reality most of us are in the middle ground, moderate. But there's this internet divide we see, that this pick a side mentality. So all of that might just come up for discussion with this Jupiter and Gemini transit, hopefully. And then in July, Mars conjuncts Uranus and Taurus. Again, I'm not trying to do any scaremongering, but we often associate these transits with natural disasters or economic shock waves. Matt, would you agree?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with this one. So, yeah, we can associate that with natural disasters, and or it can also be a, somehow about a kind of violent act. So with Mars Uranus, we can
Mm,
also see violence because that makes the body or energy a bit uncontrollable.
mhm.
So in July, yeah, July, mid-July especially, that can be an intense time regarding maybe violence, maybe security, or yeah, or maybe it can be related to natural disasters as well, because the conjunction will happen in Taurus. And again, going back to Algol, Uranus will be in Algol, and Mars will also trigger that. So, yeah, we can kind of expect something that will be quite big in July. So, that can be the case. But again, yeah, we will like, but Uranus is not like it happens. Something happens and we see it immediately. So this, I think that will be a long social process, and it will be the start of a long social process again in July with this conjunction.
Yeah, and we always associate Taurus energy, well, at least I do, with safety and
Yeah.
security. So threats, if you think about internationally, some threats to security that are shocking. And it mightn't necessarily, be something physical, but with Taurus, we tend to think it is. Istas, how would you feel about that Mars Uranus conjunction in July?
Yes, I think I fully agree with Matt on the possible themes of this conjunction being around the security issues with both Mars and Uranus meeting in Taurus, as well as the basic necessities, as well as all things related to Earth, as we've seen, already, with lots of natural disasters throughout Uranus time in Taurus, like floodings and earthquakes and whatsoever. So, of course, I am just quietly hoping with all of us, like this transit passes as quietly as possible in terms, especially in the department of, natural disasters. But we know that these things can happen. Also, with Uranus and Mars being in a Venus-ruled sign, we may really see some sudden financial shifts regarding, regarding our finances, regarding world markets. We've seen many shifts with, especially with Bitcoin, for those of us who are interested in digital currencies, with Uranus being in Taurus, which I guess is also like a very literal manifestation of Uranus, in terms of innovation, and Taurus in terms of money and the way we exchange goods. So yeah, I would also be keeping my eye on the financial sector too for this conjunction, and on these probably more positive things, I could see perhaps some innovative outlets for creativity around that time. We will possibly see what happens, but there might be, I guess when we turn back from a bit later, we can see perhaps like some great pieces of art, transformative, very new, very unique pieces of art being made around that time. I could see also as one of the possibilities for this Mars-Uranus conjunction, some of the more positive ones.
Yeah, I think like in our own natal charts, it could be a really positive thing, the Mars Uranus conjunction, depending of course on the aspects and where it falls. Hannah, Mars and Uranus conjunction in July, the last big bang of the summer. What do you feel about that transit?
Mm. Yeah, I like that thought of it where, with Uranus, it really is about the future, and we're not really going to see the full impacts of it until later on. But what came to my mind is this is sort of like, so Mars conjunct Uranus is a continuation from that the Mercury conjunct Uranus when Jupiter
Mhm.
first entered Gemini. So it's almost like with the Mercury conjunct Uranus section of it, it's more about, okay, ideas and um, sort of creative thought. But then with Mars, it's like, okay, perhaps people acting on these ideas or doing something. Um, Especially if, for example, there could be these economic and these security shifts impacting people's security, impacting their desires, their pleasures, their comforts, even their values as well. And I think even what's been coming up a lot, especially with Jupiter following the path of Taurus over the past year or so, is if we think about inflation and the prices of everything rising and the cost of living, what's been coming up a lot, I think, is this question of what is a luxury, and how can we be resourceful with what we already have, and what can we do differently, and how also can we be patient. I think our patience has been very much tested whilst Jupiter has been in Taurus. Uh, And so I feel as if this conjunction, it's going to be quite a confronting energy in this respect. And then I also think, kind of following on along the same lines that you were saying there, Isis, with the with Bitcoin and everything, I feel as if this is going to become more and more prominent. And, these things to do with online banking and having our, finances on our phones. For example, you have Apple Pay, you know, where you can just bring your phone to the checkout and use your phone. And some people are very, very skeptical about that, and maybe they have reason to be. But I feel as if then this is where we're going to notice maybe more of a push for the whole just online, you know, where we're going to get more uh, societally, it's like no more coins, no more notes. But I think that within itself, that's a big sort of question. Moral, you know, morality comes into that a
Yeah.
lot. And I
Yeah,
feel
a
as if this is
cashless
going to say it.
society. Are we moving towards a cashless society? With
Yes.
Saturn and Pisces, I always think Saturn and Pisces as well is like, you know, going after anybody that is evading tax. And even though I'm not in favor of a cashless society, it seems that, you know, it will be a movement that is going to get harder and harder to resist, the further we go into the transits that are coming up ahead. So our second last major, we're nearly through our agenda. Pluto moving back into Capricorn one last time in September, guys. And what I think is so interesting about this one is that there's like this big standoff when it's going to oppose Mars and Cancer. So Pluto and Capricorn opposes Mars and Cancer for the last time in our lifetime, anyway. And this is happening a few days before the US elections, so obviously they're going to be in the news. But you know, Pluto opposite Mars, I mean, it's a big one. Matt, what do you feel?
Yeah, so that will be quite interesting. So as you say, there will be US elections during those period. And like even if you don't live in the United States or even if you don't have any relation to the United States, whatever happens in the United States affects all the world. So yeah, this effect. So yeah, that will be for that quite challenging in a way. So if we also think that Mars is in Cancer, so in which it can be quite patriotic in Cancer, like yeah, there can kind of be the movements, or let's say, or the clashes of patriotism, or protecting country, or even a type of nationalism in a way in those
Yes, you've
periods.
just reminded me, Matt. I'm nearly sure the US has a very strong Cancer placement in its chart.
Yeah, yeah,
All off the top of my
exactly,
head.
exactly. So for US, yeah, it will be interesting time. So as I said, for Jupiter in Gemini, I think Jupiter will also be in retrograde or will be ending retrograde at that time. So that will be the peak of the political false information, maybe, or political upheaval. So I think, yeah, we will have lots of um, interesting things at that time for about the election, and globally, other than US. So that will be the last kick of Pluto in Capricorn. So, like I think for Pluto in Capricorn, it will be the cherry on top. So you can think of what has been happening since 2008. So, for example, it first started with US stock market crisis in
Mhm,
2008. So
mhm,
now it will end with US elections. So also it's
mhm.
quite interesting. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely going to not be boring.
yeah.
Hannah, how do you feel about this Pluto Mars opposition that's happening so close to the US elections?
Yeah. Uh, so what came to my mind is, so the ruler of well, the dispositor, sorry, of Mars there being the moon in Sagittarius at the time. Around that time, there will be a Sagittarius stellium, and then there will be square to Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn will be retrograde as well. So, but then Saturn would be the dispositor of Pluto in that respect, because Saturn rules Capricorn. So I feel as if, yeah, it could be quite an aggressive time, tension building, disruptions, disagreements. Again, going back to polarization, you know, just as you said, Katrina, in your direct message of being a very sensitive time, and I very much agree with that, especially with Mars being in detriment there in Cancer, and yeah, emotions will be running high. It'll be Scorpio season as well. So Mars being the ruler then of Scorpio in that way. Yeah, a lot of emotional distress, perhaps. And what else do I want to say? Is there anything else?
That's a very good point you make about Mars being the ruler of Scorpio season. So Mars, is very active in Scorpio season, and Mars ruling the nodes of destiny too. So a lot of fated events. But yeah, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yes, I do believe that with Mars opposite Pluto in Capricorn, we're in for some, really interesting action with all that Hannah and Matt mentioned. When I looked into the chart, I saw that basically both of these planets, both Mars and Pluto, are at the anaretic degree, at the 29 degrees, which adds extra tension as we know, like these planets at these anaretic degrees are usually seeking some one way or another to release that tension. And there may be some deceptive actions, some impulsive reactions around that time, as Hannah mentioned, Mars being ruled by the moon, which is gonna be in Sagittarius, I guess, if I'm correct, and Sagittarius, often being associated with, doing or saying things without thinking through. And with Mercury just having ingressed into Sagittarius, where it also does not feel quite at home, we may have lots of false information, we may have lots of lies, we may have lots of deception going on, and it's really going to be very interesting to see, like, what kind of outward manifestation it's gonna take regarding the U.S. elections, because with planets at this 29th degree, we're kind of at this massive turning point, a confrontation moment where it's like, shall I fight my opponents, or shall I look for more civilized ways to kind of deal with this confrontation? And also there's a Venus-Jupiter opposition happening at the same time. So, we may see those politicians going overboard, in one direction or the other. So I do believe it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and with that Venus-Jupiter opposition as well, we have this, whatever happens is going to affect the economy. As Matt pointed out, America has this domino effect on the rest of the world. But if we look at it in the most simplest terms, Pluto in Capricorn, Capricorn ruling government, Mars in Cancer, Cancer, America is a Cancer, isn't it, born the 4th of July? So we have some sort of attack or takedown, a challenge to the structure, the powers that be, the structures, the government in America. And it might not be pretty, but it's definitely going to be interesting. It's one we'll have to watch closer to the time. But Pluto re-enters Aquarius then, finally, on November 19th. And we all breathe a sigh of relief. or do we? What I've noticed interesting about this transit, when it re-enters Aquarius, is that Mars is in Leo, as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mars is at about 4 degrees, 5 degrees Leo. So there's going to be what we call, again, another week, let's say, opposition with Pluto and Mars. So the story continues. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, so like they will be in cardinal signs at first, so it will be, I think, about the action. So the rest of the opposition in Leo and Aquarius will be about stabilizing the change and stabilizing the like new regulations maybe. And so I think the opposition of Leo and Aquarius will be more smooth in a way for that than Cancer and Capricorn. So yeah, that will be
I
the
have to I
period
have
of
to
getting
say that
used
I
to.
just remembered there Donald Trump is a Leo, isn't he? I
Yeah,
just remembered Mars
yeah.
is going to be in Leo opposing Pluto and Aquarius. He's going to be vocal that time. Anyway, Hannah, how do you feel about that ingress?
Yeah, yeah, that could be quite a time of urgency, crisis, emergency. Um, yeah, I don't want to, create any sort of like fear in people or
Mm,
anything like that. But I mean, yeah, it could be quite a confrontational time,
mm,
basically. And I do find it interesting because Mars will retrograde in Leo as well and in Cancer toward the end of the year, and then there will be the opposition to Pluto, Venus, and Ceres all in Aquarius,
mm-hmm.
toward the end of the year. So I think humanity, there's just going to be a lot that's going to come up within humanity. Maybe even having to face our shadow, or maybe some sort of loss in an idea, loss of thought, loss of a message, shift in consciousness, realization about how, like going back to what I was saying earlier, just how separate we are. And, hopefully, I do like to always hope for betterment, as an Aquarius. But
Yes.
hopefully, we can come together, and we can more so connect on a more like collective level, and it is more about humanity, and trying to even set our differences to the side, and to just to realize that we're all interconnected.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of our viewers there, Astrology in Style, says he has Leo Mars in the first house, so he'll be having his Mars return, Leo rising, Gemini Sun. Thank you guys for your input.
Yeah.
Isis, how do you feel about that final ingress?
Yes, I do believe it's gonna be pretty much a continuation of themes that we see around this opposition of Mars and Pluto. Because when I look at the chart, it's pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so we don't really know what's gonna happen around the time of this opposition, but it surely is gonna be like plenty of division probably in American society, right? Plenty of this questioning where are we now as a society, as a government, as nation, probably even. And I do believe that initially it might be troubling, but I do believe that it's gonna, force us to raise these broader questions about, what makes us, what makes a community, and what are these basic general principles regarding community. Because Pluto and Aquarius is probably gonna, transform the way we look at our communities, the way we look at our society, the way we communicate with broader world and broader communities. And I do believe that, at first we're gonna probably start at this kind of confusing and heavy situation. But I do believe that, looking at the chart, we certainly see, I don't know, some hope too, that, there's a sextile to Neptune and a sextile to the Sun. So, by turning to compassion and empathy, and trying to be, trying to go from our heart spaces, not from this confrontation or ego trying to establish ourselves as the know-alls, but by choosing this compassion and empathetic approach, and by speaking from the heart, we can really find this new ways of looking at our societies, and of basically bringing people together. That's my take.
Yeah, I totally agree. Both you and Hannah raised, valid points there about how there's so much space for hope, for transformation coming out of these transits that, on looking at them on the outset, they look challenging. We don't want to whitewash them, but yet there's still so much room there for growth, for empathy, for compassion. And a lot of things are being brought to the surface that need to be brought to the surface, in society. Matt, would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. So that will be the closing event of the year, and later on, like in 2025, Mars will also retrograde in Leo. So that will be like a revision. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that will sure bring lots of changes and social changes, and yeah, that they will be quite fixed and quite long term in fixed signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the very last thing, the last transit I thought, which was interesting, was this exact square that Saturn in Pisces is going to make on Christmas Eve 2024. And I'm aware not everyone celebrates Christmas, but you know, it is such, in the world of capitalism and consumerism, it is such a huge event. And when this, with this square from Saturn, from Jupiter, you know, to Saturn, I'm thinking, is the bell tolling at last for consumerism? Is this like the death to capitalism? You know, all of this excess we have in society. Do we need all of this stuff? You know, we have so much stuff. Society has gotten so commercial. Is there going to be a wave of soup kitchens and homeless shelters being opened? You know, Saturn here is trying to teach us something next year. What's truly important during the holiday season? Hannah, how would you feel about that square on Christmas Eve?
I I really liked what you said there, Katrina, and it is so true. You know, I feel like Saturn and Pisces is really teaching us so much about how to get in touch with our spiritual selves, and we really don't need as much as we think we need. But maybe Jupiter retrograde, they're making that square to Saturn and Pisces could try to look at, well, try and not overthink it, and maybe try and come from a place of, you were saying there, Isis, about compassion, and something that I had taken note of was, you know, coming coming from a place of, you know, being guided from our heart, and really from feeling and being aligned with our intuition, and at the same time, of course, not spiritual bypassing either, or, you know, burying our head in the sand, or pretending like, you know, something isn't there because it's too difficult. But I do think that this could perhaps point toward just extending love, and coming from a compassionate place. I mean, Mercury will be in Sagittarius as well, opposite Jupiter retrograde too. So here we go again, you know, just many opinions, arguments, preaching, judging. But that, I think that the Pisces energy, it's pointing towards it's kind of going off again what you said, Isis, you know, trying not to be so in the ego, and coming from a place of compassion and empathy.
Yeah, the dissolving of the ego, I guess, could that be one of the themes
Yeah.
for Saturn in Pisces, I guess, you know, that we will be exploring next year. What do you feel about that square, Matt, on Christmas Eve?
Yeah, actually, Hannah talked about when we were talking about Jupiter in Taurus, and she talked about how we can see things as enough, and how we can make use of our resources. So that square up will also complement that. So what is excessive, and how can you make the best out of what you have? And also, rather than like stalking or excessiveness, luxuries, how can you Pluto will be in Aquarius too. How can you benefit people, benefit society, and or yeah, create a social change? So that will be like a transit of reality. So yeah, so these are the real situations that you ignore rather than being blinded with the lights and then fun and this type of thing. So now deal with the real um, problems. If you want to feel like fulfilled, like Saturn in Pisces, feeling emotions, if you want to feel comfortable, if you want to feel comfortable with yourself, if you want to sleep well when you sleep at night, so with all your heart. So now you have to do these things. So that will be about this type of teachings, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. The idea of breaking through, I guess, all that superficiality to, you know, a place of more compassion for other people, where we're directing our energy outwards rather than, you know, what have I got, rather than what have I got to give. I really like that one. And like, Isis, what are your thoughts on the Jupiter Saturn square?
Well, what I really noticed is, you know, it's kind of not only the Saturn Jupiter square, but it's also a T square with Saturn being at the apex of it, right? Because we have this Mercury Jupiter opposition going on at the same time. And all of these three planets are in unfamiliar territories because Mercury in Sagittarius, as I've mentioned already, is very much inclined to speak before thinking through of the possible impact of these words and ideas. And Jupiter expands every single idea and creates excess, in terms of our thinking. And Saturn just floats about in the Piscean waters and sure about everything, including itself. So I think it's around Christmas Eve, I see it as kind of a very tricky situation in a sense. It's like which might manifest as a lesson in transmitting information, or I don't know, becoming overly excited about something only to discover this grand idea of yours. It's like a bubble. With Saturn, we have this pretty much reality check kind of situations where maybe we might get a lesson in fact checking, or anyway, I do believe that come next Christmas we should be really attentive to what we think and speak, because our Christmas Eve, it might turn a little bit sour and bring extra flavor to family reunions that happen around that time. So yeah, I
Yeah.
would just urge to each of us to stay cautious about our words, and what do we want to convey, and what is the possible impact of our words.
Yeah. Definitely with a T-square at Christmas. It's not ideal. It's not what we asked Santa for, but we're getting it anyway. So it's definitely one to watch next year.
Yeah,
And
I also want to add something, sorry,
yeah,
so that tension, because in 2024, many things will have happened by Christmas. So I think people will have different opinions and ideas on these things. So when families get together at Christmas, there will be lots of discussions on differences, I believe.
so try not to discuss politics at
Yeah.
Christmas, so maybe, or other divisive issues like digital currency, etc., etc. Um, the overall energy of 2024, when I was organizing this live, I was trying to choose music, and I always try to choose some dramatic music. And I was thinking about the Bourne films, Jason Bourne. I was thinking, the North Node in Aries, he's the hero, and he's all on his own. He's taking on the system. And I was thinking about Pluto and Capricorn, leaving Capricorn, and our responsibility individually, and our responsibility, as in the collective. And just I was thinking about, if you could encapsulate the energy in a single word or phrase, what that might be. And I thought, the Moby song Extreme Ways was quite relevant, because I do feel, as Matt, you alluded to it there's going to be, extremes when it comes to people's opinions and views. There's going to be this divisive energy. We have been experiencing it already. We know Jupiter and Gemini is going to amplify it. So it's more important than ever that we're really, really aware next year, and that we're detaching a little bit with Pluto and Aquarius, taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture. And I do feel, even though Saturn is pretty active next year, it's a real Martian year. It is not going to be boring. So if you could encapsulate it in a word or a phrase, Hannah, what would you choose?
See, I had something used, and then I've listened to everybody today, and I'm like, there's so many things I could
I
say.
know. Well, I don't think there's any wrong answer, to this.
Um, so I put to get excited about a world of ideas and to embrace your own way of doing things. But I'm also going to add on to the end of that, without projecting onto others.
Nice. Nice. I love it. I love it. So I've just seen one of the comments there from Lady Gemini. I won't repeat it, but I am laughing though. Thank you for that input. Isis, have you any phrase or single word that encapsulates the energy for 2024?
Yes, when I sat down today and went through quickly throughout these main moments of the year, I was thinking about like how could I perhaps summarize this, and I think messy yet electrifying might be quite quite a good formulation for that, because we have lots of Uranian energy, which is gonna, of course, bring lots of things to the surface and, force us to renew our outlook. And with Jupiter coming into Gemini, it's gonna be a massive boost to our mental structures, to our communication. So, there's lots of this, mutable energy. At the same time, we have this lots of important rare Uranian transits. So we may actually see, plenty of these unique, really important changes throughout the year. But at the same time, of course, it's gonna be an interesting year, I guess. It's probably not gonna be very easy. As much as we would all like to say that, in the annual forecast, and it's gonna be all joy and things
Yeah,
like that.
it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we will have some challenges, but I think that's one of the biggest gifts when you know astrology. You can look ahead and pretty much know what kind of things to expect. And even if it turns out to be like a very difficult time, at least you can have that astrologer's joy of, oh, I knew that would happen like this.
At least we'll be able to say, I told you so. Matt, what are your any parting like single phrase or
Yeah.
words to
So,
encapsulate
yeah,
it?
now I think about it, I can say like that has to be chaos for order. So in a way, so yeah. So
Yeah.
we will have this maybe difficult times, upheavals, changes, but they will be quite leading us to the um, maybe more stability or maybe more equality. So these things will happen for a reason in a way. So yeah, that's how the society is transformed in this case.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that will be.
I totally agree. Chaos for order. Is that what you
Yeah,
said, Matt? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I think like a movie, if you're sitting down to watch a movie, you are gonna be entertained. Like the gladiator, he turns around, he says, "Are you not entertained?" Well, I think there's going to be lots of entertainment. There's going to be so
Yeah,
much happening. In fact, I think a lot of us are going to have to probably have some good boundaries with our phones next year because there's just going to be so much happening in the news because it's a busy year astrologically speaking.
yeah.
It's been absolutely lovely to have you all join me. I'm sorry we went a little bit over time, but there was so much to discuss.
Yeah.
Is there anything, Matt, I know you have a class happening in February, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah,
Something you might want to plug on your page. Matt, I'll go to you first.
okay. So I will have my astrology class. It will be my fourth astrology class that will start on February. And like you are one of my first students, like many
I'm a
people know that I believe.
graduate of Matt's
Yeah,
class,
yeah,
proud graduate.
yeah. And I also teach Uranian astrology, and the second class of Uranian astrology will be in May or June, I believe. So yeah, you can kind of keep in touch or stay tuned for new things. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because Matt, you aren't currently doing readings, but the next best thing is to learn from Matt because he's an incredible teacher. So if you
Thank
have an
you.
opportunity to learn astrology, please go check out his class because it literally is a once in a lifetime opportunity and it's life changing. And when Pluto enters Aquarius, I
Well,
mean, it would just be so amazing to say, like I can say that I'm a graduate of Matt's class. Istis, have you anything you would like to promote or you're doing readings, I believe, at the moment? Yes.
Yes, at the moment I'm doing natal chart readings, really, really long ones, and that take 1 hour and a half. And I
Mhm.
really like to kind of go very analytical but intuitive at the same time. I try to balance these two perspectives. And I also plan to open solar return readings very, very soon. So yeah, just follow my page at
Amazing.
YouTube Astro, and yeah, I hope to meet you sometime.
Your readings are live. Are they face to face live over Zoom? Yes.
Yes, they are live readings over Zoom. I do believe that it's the best technique, so you can always, have some
Yeah.
questions and
Yeah, amazing. What a wonderful opportunity for anybody looking for like a live face-to-face reading with an astrologer. Check out Deep Chill Astro's page. Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, so you can find my services over on my website, hannahselsper.com. There are pre-recorded options, live consultation options, and then also you can check me out over on YouTube. I have like over 700 videos,
Yeah.
free content. So if you want to educate yourself a little bit on astrology, and then I have Patreon as well, where I post daily forecasts and there's PDF guides to go along with the YouTube videos. Um, and there's a Discord and everything over there. So yeah, check me out
And
on
you
those
have an
channels.
amazing guide to 2024, a calendar created, haven't you? I
Yeah,
saw. Yeah,
uh-huh,
I just think
yeah.
that's amazing to have one of those, for, budding astrologers or astrology enthusiasts. It's such a great resource. I just think that is a lovely thing to put out there for the collective. So that's amazing. Thank you all so, so much for joining me.
Thank
There
you.
were lots of comments and interaction from our viewers. I really appreciate them all. I wouldn't have time to go through questions, so I didn't offer questions this time, but maybe the next time, I hope one or all of you will join me again in the
Yeah,
future.
sure. I love
Yes,
this.
Yeah, thank you
thank
so much,
you.
guys.
Yeah.
All that's left for me to say is that astrology is complicated, but if you follow us, it doesn't have to be. Bye bye, everyone,
Bye
and
bye.
see
Bye bye.
Bye,
Thank
2024.
you.
everyone. Bye.